Considering that we're in this era right now, of so many games that are being remade, I'm not really surprised to see games from like the late 80s or the mid to late 80s, the 90s, and even the early 2000s getting, a second shot at the limelight. I mean, we got Croc coming back. I mean, Rushing Beat, and so many old franchises that, they were never popular. So it's actually very interesting when they do get remade. Like I kind of want to be a fly on the wall for those types of business decisions where we're like, all the executives are sitting together and the game devs and they're like, you know what we should really do? We should bring back a dead franchise that never really was popular, but it had a nice following because it was actually a really mechanically sound game. And yeah, it's just completely remake it from the ground up and bring it back to the modern audience and see how they like it. And literally, Natsume did that by bringing back Shadow the Ninja, which is a game that, I enjoyed. I remember when it came out back in 1990. I had it back then and I played it and I absolutely enjoyed it. So when I got the opportunity to cover this game, I was like, oh, I'm down. I saw screenshots of it and I thought this game looked so amazing. So, man, it's NES hard. If that makes like if you understand what that means it's hard. If you don't know what that means, it's the old school way of you gonna fuck around and figure it out because that's exactly what you do in this game. But anyways, today we're gonna be talking about Shadow of the Ninja Reborn. This is a remake of the 1990 game, and it's got a lot more personality, some superb animations, and it's got some balls to the wall challenge. So, without further ado, we're going to talk about it. So, this game was originally, when Shadow of the Ninja originally came out, it released in December of 1990. And it quickly became a beloved NES classic. And despite its success, it only spawned just one entry. I mean, yeah, you had the Game Boy entry, but do we really count that? I don't really think that we do. But anyways, that aside, Return of the Shadow, which eventually went on to become Ninja Gaiden Shadow, which is quite interesting. It ended up fading into obscurity for about 3 decades. And recently, Natsume decided, hey, we want to revitalize the franchise with Shadow of the Ninja Reborn, which introduces a fresh artistic approach and updated animations. So what I'm attempting to do with this review is I really want to see if this is worth you spending your time on. For me, because I grew up with the NES era, it's a definite. If you grew up with that era, it's for you. But if you didn't and you're someone who's, a modern gamer who's kind of trying out older stuff, well, you're going to want to sit around. So get your popcorn, get yourself something to drink. Let's go ahead and dive into it. So Shadow of the Ninja Reborn is developed by E-Dicker and effectively showcases their capability to modernize the classic while maintaining its core gameplay. The story now unfolds in a futuristic setting where two ninja mercenaries aim to topple a demonic dictatorship in 2029, which interestingly enough is not that far off from where we are in 2024. Yes, I'm dating this video by putting a date on it, but hey, I mean, it's August 28, 2024 when I'm recording this, so yeah. So the narrative and setting adjustments added a fresh layer to the gameplay. The graphical updates are particularly impressive, with detailed pixel art that suggests the game could have been a standout title on, more advanced platforms of the time, especially handheld ones of the time, like the Game Boy Advance, or even as a digital release in the mid 2000s on the PlayStation Network or the Xbox Live Arcade. The animations for the characters Hayate and Kaede are meticulously crafted, enhancing the visual experience to the extent that it occasionally distracts from gameplay. And speaking of gameplay, Shadow of the Ninja Reborn sticks close to the original's formula, offering tight, challenging action that is somewhat more forgiving than Ninja Gaiden's notorious difficulty, but it's still very balls hard, so don't think that this is going to be a cakewalk. This does make it a more accessible option for both veterans and newcomers to the genre. The remake shines by balancing preservation and innovation, presenting a compelling case for both nostalgia enthusiasts and newcomers. The additional graphical options like scan lines and enhanced color settings, especially on devices like the Nintendo Switch OLED, add to the immersive experience. Shadow of the Ninja Reborn is a succinct adventure that can be completed in just a couple of hours. Honestly, you could probably beat this game in about an hour and a half, 2 hours, depending on how good you get at the level memorization for, like, where the platforms are going to be, where the items are going to be, and also the enemy patterns. And then you can probably beat it within about, like I said, hour and a half, 2 hours. Now, I will nitpick that there are some things about this that I don't like, and I guess this is more or less because I've gotten so much accustomed to modern gaming that a lot of classic game design is just a little annoying. So there's a little bit of a hit back every time you take a hit, and also the fact that when you want to switch, your sub items, you have to hold down R and then move the left or right thumbstick or D-pad to actually cycle through your stuff. And then when you want to use it, there is a second of input delay, or rather, not input delay, but your character is going to stall for an animation. And because it's so highly animated, you got to wait for the animation to finish so you can take back control of your character. It's a little annoying, especially when you're fighting a boss. And I'm not saying that any of the bosses are particularly too difficult once you memorize their patterns, but they do get annoying in the sense of, like, if you need to use something for healing, it's going to be very difficult for you to be able to get some breathing room for you to be able to restore your health and then get back into the action. Honestly, the fact that you have to hold down the right shoulder button to cycle through your items, and the fact that you have to be stationary to do it, like you can't pause or you can't, like, I don't know, like Mega Man in sense of like cycling through your items, your special items or sub weapons. You can't do that, so it, which adds to the old school, aesthetic, but it's a little annoying. I think also it would have benefited from having like a tutorial mode to show you what everything does, because it literally is like old school. And look, I'm not complaining about the old school aesthetics because that does appeal to me, even though I'm somewhat complaining about it. It's the fact that I wish I could like pause, or at least turn an option on where I can pause it to switch through my items, or I can like maintain my maneuverability when I'm selecting through my items. And also, like, there are certain abilities, like the ability to do a hover, like if you jump, you hold down and you press jump again and you hold jump, you'll do like a spin, which slows your descent. The game doesn't tell you you can do that, and that's going to be very critical to getting certain special items down the road. And also, there's the fact that, like, you can do a pogo, like a downward attack, and if you hold the attack and you land, you kind of pogo on your sword, which it doesn't really tell you can do that. Um, Half the times you don't know what items do. Like, some restore your sword's power up, some heal you. Whether or not you know the difference between them is really up to trial and error, which is an old school design. But it's just one of those things. I feel like there's some things that, for the aesthetic of it being a reimagining of the first game, and a reimagining on a retro style, like that era, the late 80s, early 90s NES style games, I get it. But at the same time, I'm like, I want to be able to turn on some modern conveniences too, because the game is very difficult, unless you can memorize patterns. Like, you're gonna have a hard time getting through this with a no hit run. But anyways, those are my complaints about it. Overall, it's a fine game. So, in wrapping everything up, Shadow of the Ninja Reborn, it is honestly a love letter to a long overlooked classic, and brings it back into the spotlight, offering, an exciting surprise for those who might have missed it amidst the dominant presence of Ninja Gaiden on the NES. This release is not just a nod to nostalgia, but a very well executed revival that deserves a look. Okay, so feature me here. As I'm editing this, I realize I didn't give this game a rating, so I'm gonna just add it right here. And yeah, Shadow of the Ninja Reborn, 4 out of 5. Yeah, that works. And with that being said, that's the review for Shadow of the Ninja Reborn. Again, thank you to the developers for providing the game for review. But what do you guys think? Are you excited for this game? Have you already pre-ordered it? Are you picking it up? Are you playing it already? Whatever your thoughts are, let's get the conversation going in the comment section down below. With that being said, if you like the video, like it, sub if you want. I mean, I'm not gonna, hey, do what you do. But all that being said, catch you guys on the next one. Stay safe, be blessed, have aloha, and I'll see you around. Peace out, and hopefully help.